It actually works, huh? Yeah, that's good.
Like the clapping?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to. Otherwise, I can't. I don't know where to put the audio and the video together.
Right.
It's too hard to line up. I could pick one word.
Yeah.
But
the clap is it.
It's just easier.
So what's bothering me?
Yeah. You want to rant?
No, so you know what really bothers me is, and it's getting worse and worse, is the lack of listening skills on human beings.
Worse in the sense of people being worse at it, or it bothering you more?
No, I don't know. And maybe I'm just more aware of it. But I just find that when you're having conversations with people, it's not usually a conversation. Everyone's in a hurry to interrupt and say their piece. So I think that's why the social interactions I have where there's more than one person, like if there's a group of 3 and we start adding, I go crazy because I really, really feel that people don't listen. It's cut off to tell their story all the time. Yeah. Do you ever find that?
Yeah. One thing my mom used to say to me all the time is people don't listen. They wait to respond.
That's a true statement.
And that was something that, so for me and this, it's probably the worst. It's a lot better now, but with my brother when we talk. Yeah. Because we're both so like alpha about arguing and we both want to be right. It would be so much of that where like I'm not even listening to what you're saying. I'm just waiting for you to shut up so that I can just say what I want. But with most other people, I think I do okay. But it's getting a lot better. But I literally know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. It's like you're saying, I've watched it happen with you too, where you're talking, but if it could be like to a parent or something, and you give them like some kind of advice, or you say something like they come and ask a question and you give them an answer, and then they completely. It's like you didn't just say what you said. Oh, I know. It's incredible. So I found when I was watching our last couple of podcasts, I'm going to try to do a better job of it today, starting from now forever. But when you're speaking, I'll hear myself in the background go, yeah. And I find it's even confusing then. Maybe my brain's starting to go sideways. But I really I'm so conscious of it, even with my son, my wife, and even the smallest conversations, to let someone actually speak. So, I don't know. I don't know if it's a thing now or if it's always been that way, but I just notice it so much when you're speaking to someone and then they jump in and then you can't get your point across or you can't get your story out. It's like people jump in and start telling you and it goes sideways. And if you ever sit around now and I'm sure you do, but you sit around with a group of 5 people. Wow. Yeah. Actually, just a lot of noise. The 2 things, the podcast thing, it's interesting because when I go back to do the edits on the stuff, I listen to the conversation. Right. And I pick up on stuff like that all the time. Like I noticed early on I would do that. Yeah. Like you'd be talking and exactly. I'd be doing yep, yeah. And it's just, you don't have to say it. It's okay if you don't say anything. And then another one that I would do is I would say right at the end of my sentences a lot. And then another one that my girlfriend just pointed out to me because she listens sometimes is I'll say the thing with that is, or the thing is, or whatever. That I said that's something I repeat constantly, and it gets in the way. It distracts from what we're talking about, kind of thing. Not exactly the same as the listening thing, but whatever. But one thing I got a compliment from, again, my mom. Shout out to Nadia. Great. And she was saying she likes listening to us because we don't do that. Oh, that's good. We don't let. Sorry. But like when one of us is on a tear, it's one thing if we're going back and forth, but when someone's on a tear, we're not like talking over each other, interrupting each other too much and making it, because it's hard to listen to when people are doing that. Even if you're listening to, it's not even debates, but like stuff on the news where they'll have like opposing opinions and it's impossible. You're not even listening. Like no one's listening. Well, that's the thing. No one's listening. No one's getting their point. It's about who can be louder, who could be smarter. And the thing is that you're going to be a lot smarter if you actually just listen. Right. Someone's got to say something, though. We can't just be here quiet. It'd be a pretty boring podcast. The other one I was going to say, my second point on that was, if you're in a group, you've probably done this too, but I've noticed, because like I'm trying to do exactly what you're saying, where I'm trying to listen, and you'll see sometimes someone has something to say, and they like can't find a point to break into the conversation. Because you'll have people that dominate conversation more. Like, so somebody like me, I have no problem like sticking my nose right in to make my point. Right. But other people are more reserved, or they're quiet or shy, or they don't want to be interrupting or whatever. So one thing I notice, if I'm in a group, someone will have something to say and they won't get to say it. So when there's a break, I'll try to like jump in and say, oh, like you were going to say something, or like what you had something to say or whatever, to give them the opportunity to talk, because it's so frustrating
it's
when
crazy.
there's just so much crazy.
So I find like, so if I'm in a social event, I don't have any.
Yeah.
So I can't, no, but if even family's over,
yeah,
or I'm with family somewhere, I try to listen to one person. Like, it's weird. Like if you're sitting in a room and you're in a square, circle, whatever, oblong, whatever the shape is.
Rhombus.
It's like there's some that as soon as you're not speaking, or they feel like or they'll talk and as soon as they get your eyes, they got you.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy, because like if you're speaking, and typically I find in social events, mostly men kind of talk with men and are cordial to the women. Is that true? In my world, I find that.
Well, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the situation. But if it's like a big group of people, normally like the men go off to one group, and there's some cross, but like for a lot of the time, I found that too. It's pretty more common.
So I like sometimes. So I think it may be guys thinking. There's no science behind this. It's just my observations. So a lot of times, like the room will kind of separate, or if it's not, you'll be speaking and I'll be trying to listen, and then someone's trying to get, something, or you have 2-3 people talking at the same time. And you're going like, guys, I don't know how to process this. There's 3 things. Yeah. But I think sometimes it's guys try to be cordial. Like, so what I'm saying is I find that typically what happens is the men and women kind of separate. But sometimes I might be having a good conversation with a lady, a woman, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, and it's like almost like, hey, we're over here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, but this person's actually really interesting. I'm getting something out of it, or I'm explaining something to them.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. Like it just doesn't get out there.
Well, the social, I don't know what the rules of the game kind of thing, the rules of engagement when you're in like a social situation with groups like that. And I think that is right what you're saying. I think there's some cross, like even me with my friend groups, if we're at like someone's having like a little house get together or whatever, the guys most of the time end up splitting off, and they like sit at their own table, and then there's like moments where we cross paths, and I think that's just kind of natural because guys and girls will have more common interests among themselves to talk about, whatever. But it gets frustrating when you're trying to have another one that bugs me though is if you're having a conversation as a group where like everyone's participating. So there's like, let's say there's 5 people, right? All 5 people are kind of talking one at a time about whatever topic, and then someone starts a side conversation while the group conversation is happening. That drives me nuts. I can't stand that, because now it's distracting, because you're trying to listen to this person talk. Everyone was just involved, and now somebody tries to branch off and start a side conversation.
It's brutal.
That just distracts from the group conversation.
Brutal.
That drives me nuts too. I don't like that one.
Funny. I just had a thought here. Oh, so the latest conversation, like I'm going crazy because everybody, and I'm not saying a large group or whatever, but you get in a room now and the talk of COVID and everyone's theories and everybody's.
Oh yeah, it's the best.
No, it's exhausting.
It is.
It's exhausting.
Yeah,
it's so exhausting, and everyone has it's like they're giving you news that you never heard before. Yeah. Wow. And then the last thing I was going to say about that was, like I find I've been accused several times of being antisocial because I just don't participate in 17 conversations at a time. So I'm a lot of the times I'm the quietest guy in the room, and I've been accused of being antisocial. Like, what's wrong with Andy? I'm like, well, this is not the biggest brain in the world, and it only can, it only has time for so many things, and it exhausts me.
Well, I had a conversation about this with one of my friends had like a dinner thing, and there was like 6 of us there, and we were talking about this exact topic. How it's not that because I get the antisocial thing too, but it's not that I'm antisocial, and you're not either. Like when you're in the social situation, you're actually good. Like you have conversations, you ask questions, you're involved. You're not just like over hiding on your own. Like you actually get involved when you are in the social environment. But it's getting to the social environment is tiring, and then that whole situation is exhausting. Like by the end of any kind of friend hangout thing, like I'm gassed. Like I'm done. Gassed. I need to regroup. Yeah. Whereas some people are the opposite. Like I have this one friend. He is the most social person I've ever come across in my whole life. And he described to me the exact opposite thing happens to him. Like when he hangs out with people, when he goes and sees friends and whatever, it gets him fired up. Like he gets energized, wants to talk to people. This is him. This is the exact perfect example. So when you're in the mall, how do you behave when you walk through the mall?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
How do I behave?
Yeah, like so if you're walking through the mall and there's a bunch of people there, like when you go to the mall, like what is your mentality? Do you know what I'm getting at or no?
My mentality is, okay, if you get me to a mall,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to get my jeans. I'm in and I'm out, and I do not want to speak with anyone.
Exactly. Okay, so that is
I'm not social. It's a bad place to be for me.
Right, and that's exactly how my mentality is. Like when I'm going into a place where I know there's potential that I run into people I know, and it's nothing personal to any of the people, but it's just tiring to start the conversation. It's very demanding. Like it feels like very energy intensive to me to have to stop and talk. And it's not that I'm not good at it or I can't do it or anything. I can totally do it. And no one would even be able to tell that is something that I feel in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's just exhausting. This friend I'm talking about, exact opposite. He goes to the mall looking for people. He will eyes up, looking around, like where's the next person I know to say hi and see how they're doing.
Wow.
Like, it's the exact opposite. So that's just speaking on the antisocial thing you brought up there, because I don't think it is antisocial, because I've seen you especially, and I'm the same way in social settings. You're good.
I just like to have an actual conversation.
That's right.
Like when and you've seen this in the office so many times. I've had people walk in. I don't know if you remember the name of this guy, but this happens a lot. Hey, how's it going? So you go, not bad, and they already turned their back, and they're not listening.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't ask me. Like seriously, don't ask me. So I had, I'm just thinking this one person walks into the entrance of my office, asked a question, and I was answering like it was about hockey, and he walked away. I'm going, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then walked back and like he heard something. Then he said something and walked out. I'm like, wow, this is tough.
Yeah.
Wow, this is tough.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've ever explained to you, just speaking of the mall. No, not speaking about the mall. The difference between men and women. Did I explain to you from this book I read? Oh, it was Jordan Peterson's book. He was speaking about the difference of men and women, like for shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, did I ever talk to you about this? You read the book, so
yeah, I probably know.
So this is pretty interesting. So I'm just giving the guys like some ammo here for when you're with your wife. It'll make you understand them better. So he was speaking about like from the evolutionary process of what men and women used to do through evolution. So when they were cavemen, the guys would get up in the morning and they'd go out and they'd hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So what's an animal they would hunt? A saber-toothed tiger? Or, I don't know.
Woolly mammoth.
A woolly mammoth, okay? So they go out there with their arrows or however they got them, a group of guys, and they would go out and they'd search and then whack them and drag the animal back, and their day was done, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then the women would be in the village or the campfire or cave, whatever. And they would be getting the other stuff ready. So what they would do is they'd go through the fields and go through the berries or the nuts or whatever, and they'd have to pick through it and because if they didn't do that,
oh yeah, I remember
right?
This.
If they didn't, if they found that seed and that was in the food, they know that that would kill people.
Yeah.
So they were very precise on. In particular, and they took their time to go through things.
Yeah.
So he put that into shopping. So
yeah, that's interesting.
Guys, like what I say when I go to the mall, if I need a pair of jeans, it's like, okay, boom, in, out,
right,
done. And then
the
when I look, I used to look at my wife and go, honestly, like you've been at the same rack, never mind the mall, for half an hour. Picking through, going through every little thing, the color, and just deciding. But from an evolutionary standpoint, now it totally makes sense. And his theory was, and I guess it's right, I don't know, makes sense to me, is that when we do shopping and stuff like that, it's an in-out thing, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
And then the women have to make sure that evolutionary process is still picking through, making sure this is, it's pink, but I don't know if I like this pink. I like another pink in the fabric. And it's like, we're like, just come on.
Yeah, they're
like, damn thing.
Tapping into like the deep mechanisms, which is interesting. And this is my beef with like how there's a lot of like criticism about like gender roles and stuff like that now, like men and women. If you say that one group likes one thing more than another group, like people don't like that.
No.
Like, so if you say something like, what women like more like fashion. Like women are more into fashion than men.
Okay.
Like some people will not like that, and it's like,
oh,
what do you mean? Like just that's how it is. That's women are on average. There are some guys that are super into fashion.
Yeah.
That's fine,
yeah.
but like they're more into it than. So the shopping example, because it's the same thing for me. I don't want to go shopping, and I think most guys, if they're gonna go shopping all day, that's exhausting. Like
more than exhausting.
Yeah, and I think that's common for a lot of guys for sure. And for women, it's the opposite. For a lot of women, it's not.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean
it has to make sense. Like from that standpoint.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Because in general, like of course not everyone, but like even doing groceries, like my wife would go to Costco every single day.
Yeah.
Swear to God.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no problem.
We need peanut butter today. I'll go to Costco, get some peanut butter, and then she'll come back with 17 other things. Yeah. But she'll grab and I'm like,
the same thing.
I'll never go to Costco unless unless it's absolutely necessary or anything like that. I'm not going.
Yeah.
But like it's a daily thing if she could.
I know. Well, that's
it's no chore.
That's what I mean.
It's no chore.
But for us, it feels like a chore to do the shopping stuff, and that's why I don't get why that's an issue though. That's one of my just side tangent things. It's like, okay, women like to do this more. Men like to. Maybe we have different interests. Like that's okay. Why is that a problem?
Yeah.
Like why does everything have to be the same for everyone? Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, just side tangent on that.
So to make this relevant to hockey, I'm going to do that.
Go ahead.
I just thought about it because we have to make it relevant to hockey. Listening is a key skill in life. It's not about how loud you are all the time. It's like absorbing things. It's actually taking information. Coach, player, parents, scouts. I mean, a scout, like I was speaking. I like to use the word speaking properly as opposed to talking when it's not appropriate. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It would catch me doing that a lot.
I like using the right word.
Yeah.
It's good.
The correct word, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The correct word.
Is he was so you know who was in the other day to speak to me about some players, and he asked about one of the players, and I said, yeah, all right, not my favorite, not bad. He goes, well, what I got out of him was body language. Ooh, body language. He goes, first shift, second, and it just stuck with me, the body language. He's not bad. I go, no, he's not bad. He's got some stuff. He goes, the body language. He goes, and he's off my list. So that's not listening with your ears. It's listening with your eyes, right? He's seeing, okay, that's going to add up into some other thing. So like with players, body language is a lot. So like when a coach is speaking to you or players are speaking to you about, this probably something important, it's probably good as a listener to have decent body language that you're aware, nodding your head yes or no, and letting someone finish so that the point can get across, because otherwise it's just a bunch of jibber jabber and no one gets the message.
Yeah.
Nobody gets the message, if that's correct.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And coaches are the same, right? Like sometimes you might ask a player a question. Well, Charlie had an interview the other day, and the one GM was Charlie noticed it. He goes, "Wow, run-on sentences."
Actually, he said that to me too. Yeah.
He goes, the longest run-on sentences ever.
Yeah.
And he was great. The guy was great.
Yeah.
But it was like Charlie noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
So at least he was listening, I guess. But the point is, you're going to get a lot more from absorbing, right? Taking information in and processing it and not being so quick to answer. And that's where you're going to learn, right? Like I've said this, I think the last podcast, I invented this.
Yeah.
You got 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and use them accordingly.
Yeah.
And people, and you got one eye. There we go. And it's very, very important that you take the time to listen and absorb people's information, because, I like to not be the smartest guy in the room a lot of the times, so that I can get new ideas. And there's a lot of intelligent people if you give them a chance. Yeah. Right.
Well,
and when people are more on the quiet side or don't speak as much, those are the ones you actually want to have talking.
Yeah.
Because they probably have a lot of stuff in there. When it comes out, it probably means something.
Yeah. I want to go touch back on the point you made about listening with your eyes. That's a really interesting. I never actually thought about that before. That's not bad.
Not bad.
That's a really good point, because that is what you're doing when people are observing you. That would be a form of listening. They're seeing how you're reacting to things. They're seeing what your body language is like. Yeah. They're seeing how engaged you are and whatever the topic is that you're talking about or whatever you're doing. And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind, because you listen with your ears, but other people are listening to you with their eyes, right? They're seeing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that is information, just like hearing what you're saying is information.
Yeah.
And one of the things that another Jordan Peterson thing, as you mentioned him before, is he talks about what it means to believe what somebody thinks. So when somebody's explaining what they're thinking, they're saying it, but their behavior is valued more in what he's taught, which I agree with. How they behave means more than what they say.
100%.
Which makes total sense. So if you're talking to somebody and they say that they're listening, but and people, grown-ups especially, you're talking to kids, like you get this all the time where you're talking to a kid and they're just looking past you, barely paying attention. And they're like, you ask them, like, are you listening to what I'm saying? And they'll be like, yeah. It's like, no, you're not. Right. I can see you're not listening to me. And that's kind of the distinction. I like that point. I didn't really think about that, listening with your eyes. It's interesting.
The other side of it is a lot of people, when they appear like they're listening, like as though they're listening, but they're looking for a specific answer. Mm-hmm. Like, what do I need to improve my game? And it's not coming, so they're already distracted, but the actual message might be there. Mm-hmm. Listen. Yeah. And then the other good thing about being a good listener, I know it sounds kind of weird. It's not really that macho, but it actually is if you, like, for example, if you're speaking with your coach and you're maybe talking about a problem with your game, or he's giving suggestions and stuff, if you're a good listener, you're going to be able to watch body language and to read bullshit. Or and then if you're actually listening, are these words actually, is he just spinning a circle talking about nothing? Or is he actually speaking about something that's actually going to help you? Or does he know what he's talking about? So being a good listener and dissecting the actual answers that you're getting from someone is important.
Yeah. There's a video, Simon Sinek, obviously he's another guy. He talks about why a lot, like Start With Why is one of his books. And he talks about having the why and whatever. And so he has a couple good talks that I like. I don't really follow him that closely, but he's got a couple talks that I thought were interesting. And he was talking about, it was just an interesting example, because he talks a lot with like business CEOs and like high success people and whatever. And he says, when you're in a meeting, always give your opinion last, kind of thing. It's a good habit to get into, because it forces you to listen to what everyone has to say and what their honest feedback is, or what their honest opinions are. Then you get to have all the information before you share what you're saying. So especially if you're somebody who's in a position to make like executive decisions, if you're somebody's boss or you're in a position of power like that, if you say what you think first, then that's gonna impact what other people are gonna say to you, rather than what they actually think, like necessarily. So if you're in like a business meeting with your employees and you're the boss and you say, well, I really think we should do this, this, and this, what do you think?
That they're all following.
Right? Like if
maybe a little bit of pushback.
If they have a different idea, maybe now that they know you don't agree with it, they're gonna maybe soften that now, or they're gonna maybe just go along with what you're saying, or whatever. So that's this talk that Simon Sinek guy gave. It was a really good example of like why it's important to listen first, because then you get all the information before you can say what you think, which is good, because now you have all these inputs of feedback from everybody that's around you, and that might help improve what you're thinking or shape what you think, but it also gets you honesty from other people, which is an interesting thing. So back to what you're saying, if you're a player, a little bit different listening to your coach, but just actually listen to what they're saying, be quiet and listen to what they're saying, and ask all your coaches before you come up with an idea of what you think you need to work on, because a lot of times what you think you need to work on isn't what you need to work on, because you're not seeing yourself. Yeah. And it's like you've talked about before, when you went and you were asking people what your weaknesses were, and you said, or even what your strengths were, and you said it wasn't exactly what you thought. Like there were some similarities of what you thought, but it wasn't really the exact feedback that you thought on your own.
Yeah, there was a gem.
Yeah, so it's like if it's important to listen so that you get that.
100%. That was like one of the most valuable pieces of information I ever got in my life. Asking a whole bunch of people what they thought my strengths were, and my biggest strength was not what I thought was my biggest strength. And now that once I became aware of it, I said then. Once I became aware of it, I'm like, that makes sense. That actually makes sense.
Yeah. And it goes back to that point that I was saying about Jordan Peterson. So what you think is your strength isn't how you're behaving then.
Right.
So there's something that isn't aligned there. So what you would say is your strength isn't what people are perceiving as your strength, which is interesting because now your behavior isn't lining up with what you're saying. And now you can know that because you've got the feedback, and then you can make adjustments accordingly in whatever way is appropriate, right? So that's an interesting way to think about it too, the listening part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's that was good.
Yeah, it's cool. I like that.
Nice.
Listen with your eyes.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's my takeaway from that part. That was good.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. Like listening is a skill. It's a skill. It's not just listen to speak. Listen, absorb, especially as a student. It's not about just being a player student. It's about you're always a student. Like a coach can be a student because he's going to learn off of players. Like I learn off the kids all the time. You know, like I remember pulling Charlie around explaining some shooting just recently. And he told me, Dad, but he goes, I know what you're saying, but I'm feeling this. So if I don't listen and I'm just right, not the best coach.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. And then we talk about it, right?
Well, and this is another beef I have, man. Like it goes, I always am complaining about like education in school and how people don't explain why you're learning certain skills. Like that is, I have such a huge beef with that because it's so unfortunate, especially for kids that have something that isn't necessarily school that they're super into. Like all these skills are still important for that. So if you go to school and no one ever, from the time you're having carpet time in JK, when you're
carpet time, crisscross applesauce,
yeah,
that's what that is.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So you have carpet time and
oh, I had my first kiss in JK.
So did I. That's funny.
Dawn was her name.
Was it during carpet time? Is that why?
During carpet time, they were singing a song or whatever, and I guess at 4, I thought she was pretty hot.
Yeah, nice.
And
hot.
She must have thought I was pretty hot. And we went like.
Mine was at an apple orchard. We were on a tractor ride at an apple orchard.
Right.
I gave a little peck.
I got my first kick in the nuts in grade 2.
Yeah.
This girl Kim.
What happened?
Kim.
Oh, from a girl too.
Oh yeah. It was after school.
The girls just know, Kick in the nuts is tough to come back from. They wear these little
black shoes.
Yeah.
And they were like not hard
I'm picturing
steel-toe
like
boots.
I'm picturing tap shoes.
Yeah, but I said something. I don't know what I would have said. I was grade 2. What are you? 6, 7?
Yeah.
I was 11. No, 6 or 7.
Held you back.
And I said something that she just hoofed me. Oh my God. So that was grade 2.
Well, then
I've got more stories, but I won't.
So what happened in grade 5?
Let's see. I've always had events. You know this. Probably can't talk about them.
So back to carpet time.
Yeah. Carpet time. Yeah.
So your teacher.
I wasn't listening.
But so your teacher's reading you Thomas the Tank Engine or whatever.
Yeah.
And she always says, Andy, you have to listen.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you'll necessarily understand what they're saying when you're 5 during carpet time.
Right.
But from like day 1, it should be like, no, you need to listen so that you can understand like what you should and shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And that's another one of those pieces that isn't explained properly to kids. So if you get a kid like Charlie now who school's not his favorite thing, like most of the kids on his team and most athletes in general, like that's why there's the jock stereotype of them being dummies because they just care about sports and not school. Nobody explains to them that these other skills you need because they're important. Like I've said this before in the context of school, like why it's important to actually do your math homework, why it's important to know how to write a sentence. And this is another one of those. Like, why is it important to actually listen to whoever it is that's talking to you?
Yeah.
And we talked about this in another podcast too. It's like if somebody has something relevant or useful, why would you not want to? It doesn't matter who it is that's talking to you. It could be someone who you think is the most useless person that can't offer you anything. It's still better to listen than not, just in case something slips by that would have been helpful. And that nobody says that to people.
I could have should have saved people a lot of money if they would just have listened.
Oh man.
Like the process of spring hockey, this training, that, but people are just but.
Well, like, and that the one now is with agents.
Yeah.
Like it's driving me crazy, man, because I'm seeing, and it's people that are dealing directly with you, but for me, I'm on the outside, so I don't care about talking about it. But it's like they don't ask the questions. They're not listening to what the agents are saying to them and valuing it correctly. And all they hear is agent.
Or they hear the agent, when they do talk to them, about what the agent's going to do for them and how great they are.
Well,
those are keys.
But if they even listen critically to when they have these meetings with these agents, if they actually listen to what the agent says, most of the time it's nothing. Most of the time it's nothing that they couldn't do on their own without the agent.
100%.
So they're not listening. They're just seeing agent, hearing. Yeah. I'm gonna have an agent. I'm gonna have an agent. You're not actually listening to the content. It's like one of them was saying, we'll get you on this team, or we'll get you drafted in this position, or we'll get you to this tryout or whatever. It's like, first of all, if it's a draft thing, no. Second of all, if it's getting to a tryout, you can get yourself to a tryout.
100%.
Because if you're good enough to get invited to a tryout, you're good enough to get invited to a tryout. It's not going to be that somebody making calls on your behalf. It might get you one opportunity here or there, maybe. But for what it costs to have someone like that helping you out,
what a distraction to boot.
Well, and especially if you're not someone that's like a high demand player, that's when it's different, right? If you're a high demand player and they come to you saying, I'll do this for you because whatever, it costs you nothing, and if something happens later, then we'll work that out on how that's going to work. That's fine.
Yeah. But, so speaking of the agent, so Charlie's is the best. Well, so I say, right?
Yeah,
but no, I love the guy. So we allowed each other to work together. It's the best because I told Charlie to learn to be a man, not for any other reason, but when someone contacts you, just for the professionalism, is you let Ian know right away. And when you have an interview or when you have something, you let him know right away so that he's aware. But Ian's the best. So let's just say Timbuktu called me today and they gave me a really good interview. He'll send back, cool.
Yeah.
He doesn't send back, okay, I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to make sure he just, cool, okay, keep working hard. Huh? And that's the message he gets all the time. That's why I love him so much. Well, and then he'll do the background work later, but he doesn't go down the GM's throats and say, okay, what do you think of Charlie?
Yeah. Well, that's the difference with somebody like Charlie, where the position that he's in now, where he's going to be a higher, and not like top pool of players. Yeah. He's in a different position than a lot of these guys. Yeah. So a lot of guys that are getting someone knocking on their door saying, hey, if you give me $3,000, I'll make a couple calls.
Yeah, we'll get you to a junior B team.
Yeah, like I don't understand.
You can do that yourself?
Yeah, you can do that yourself. You don't need that. Now you're just wasting money to say you have an agent. And we've talked about this a million 100%. Times, how you end up dropping, and this is the other thing. The other difference too, and this is just from my outside perspective on how the situation is with the guy helping Charlie, is he's not doing anything.
No.
For Charlie.
Zero.
Like he's not unless there's like something that comes across his desk that's going on and he lets Charlie know or something. But that's it. So he's not making you pay for it. At least to my no. Okay, so no. So you're not paying him, and he's not someone that's saying I promise you the world and then not deliver. Like he hasn't done either of those two things.
I promise diddly shit.
And Charlie's more of a top prospect.
Yeah.
And those are huge. So now if you switch that and say, okay, I know I'm not a top prospect. Now this guy's coming to talk to me and I have to pay right away, and he's promising me like 3 awesome things. Like it should just be like red flag, red flag, red flag, like right away.
Well, you must have learned a ton. Even after being a hockey player, being removed a little bit through the process, because you're really close with me and Charlie and my family. You must be learning a ton about the side business here.
Oh man, people have no idea, and it's just from hearing, and it's so funny.
I'm interested to hear your product. We haven't really necessarily talked about it.
Well, did you have like a certain thing in particular that you were curious about, or just the whole process in general?
Just throw some stuff out. It's amazing.
Well, so what I'm thinking about, it's the agent stuff. It's the talking to GMs. It's the talking to scouts. It's all of this stuff. So what I find interesting is like there's a little bit of a dichotomy where we talk about it's not going on in terms of like I'm talking to this agent and this scout and this coach and whoever from all these teams. There's like a weird thing where like some of that actually does happen, but what it means actually isn't a lot. Right. So, but then you get, and that's from someone like you who's directly in the weeds because you are a player development coach, you're a skills coach, you're really connected with professionals and and all this stuff. So people want to talk to you about this stuff. Now that's you directly in it.
Mm-hmm.
These are people just asking you for, like, I've heard in the last month 25 different conversations where people are just asking you what do you think about certain players, or who do you got that's doing well, or what do you think about this or that. And it like is a drop in the bucket of what they actually have going on and what their team actually thinks and needs. And so the significance of you talking to someone,
like, are you saying me or
you
human?
personally?
Okay, me.
Is like so little.
Yes.
It's so little. So they'll take your opinions as like one factor or whatever. It's an opinion, and they're listening to it because they want to have the best player come to their team. Now, from the perspective of parents or coaches or whoever that aren't that connected, that aren't having those conversations, well, they just think that you're talking to the president of the United States every day, and you're going to be able to flip this switch and that switch and get their kid here and get their kid there. And they don't just think that about you, they think that about anyone who's talked to anyone important. So if you just have a connection where you know a scout or you know a coach or you know whatever, people think like that means I'm going to be able to get you this, that, and the other thing. And that's not how it works at all. At all. Zero. Like, the bottom line, and it's like touches on the politics thing again, but it's like the bottom line is you have to be good enough. That's all that matters at the end of the day. You have to be good enough. You knowing someone could be it's not like a job. Like, it's not like I know this guy that works at this company. Can you get me a job? Like, that's not how it is, because this is so specific, so competitive, far beyond anything that's comparable for like the average person in their life. Like, they have no idea how it works because they think that they know Joe Construction Guy that has come and helped me with my house. They think that type of relationship maps into hockey, and it just doesn't. It's just not how it works at all. They're going to do what's in their best interest. The team's going to do what's in their best interest. The scouts, the coaches, the GMs, all that. They don't give a shit about which dad they talk to or whatever. And people, like, it doesn't matter how many times it is said. It doesn't matter how many times it's said, nobody listens. Like, the parents just don't understand that. They don't listen. They think, I got to go to this tournament and I got to go to this tournament. Like, you think that that's going to make or break what your kid is because you went to this one tournament where this one guy was that you thought was going to be there. Like, it's amazing to me. Like, I don't understand.
It's important. Like, I'm just extracting one thing that you said out of that, how if they think they know the assistant. Okay, say I know the coach for the Windsor Spitfires, which I do. Mm-hmm. He has zero voice in who gets drafted to the Windsor Spitfires. He can say I like a player, but he's not drafting because he could get fired next year. As zero. Or if someone's speaking to a area scout, which is an important part of every team, but the area scout, if you think about it, let's say it's Southwestern Ontario area scout. So for the Windsor, I'll use Windsor again. So he watches all the kids in the Southwestern Ontario, and he's going to say, okay, let's say these are my top 3 guys or 5 guys from this area. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then the boss comes down, like the development team or the GM, or, they have another level of scouts that say, yeah, you're bang on, but it still doesn't mean anything because that kid could be drafted, number 1. Mm-hmm. Number 2, there could be someone better that you like more in the Ottawa area instead, or in the U.S. market or Toronto. So it's like, it means nothing. So going out of your way to be super nice to a area scout or a GM, doesn't matter. But an area scout, it's like he's just gathering information. Well, it's insignificant.
And the other piece of that too is like, you think they don't know what you're doing. Like, if you're if you're Joe Dad and you go up and talk to Ottawa's area scout, like, you think they're not walking away like, this is a stranger coming up to me and talking to me. You think they're not walking away like, Jesus, I'm trying to watch a game, man.
Well, I had one. We were playing. I don't want to say the town in case the guy listens. Waterloo. It doesn't matter. He won't listen anyways.
Whatever.
So I was having a couple beers before the game, and this guy was kind of looking at me, knew who I was. So, and I didn't know. His kid is supposed to be pretty good. Yeah. So he comes up to me and goes, hey, right out of his way when I got up to go pay, he goes, hey, how's it going? Good. You? He goes, good. How's your drive up? I'm like, good. He goes, yeah. What's your your son plays for Windsor? I go, yeah. Well, what's his name? So I go, oh, yeah. He's a good player. I go, thanks. But he wanted me to ask.
Oh, yeah. Just fishing.
And I figured out what kind of guys he wanted me to say, oh, and your son's really good too. Okay.
Yeah.
So what? Anyways.
Well, it's but these
it's insignificant.
It's insignificant. Yeah. And even like you were talking about, you met with here's another thing, right? So I'm about to say.
Yeah.
You met with a GM from a team just to talk the other day, right? Was that Sunday?
It was Sunday. You came here.
Yeah. Just to talk.
Yeah.
But the fact now that I just said you met with a GM from a team.
Yeah.
It's like people are just going to be like, oh, like you met a GM from. Right. That means you can talk to him. That means you can. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's
put a good word in.
Yeah. It's like he doesn't care,
no.
and so
actually he doesn't care about my kid that much.
Well, and this
he likes him,
but this is what I was gonna say. You said he was outlining like their process of how they go through the draft and what their plan is and how they attack it and whatever. And that's another interesting part of it is that so for a kid like Charlie, who's a highly whatever prospect, like people are looking at Charlie a lot. He said, yeah, but like for where we're drafting, that's not what we are looking for.
We said no offense again, eh?
Yeah.
He said no offense, eh? Like Charlie's just not our type of player. Go, yeah, you told me 100 times.
Yeah.
Like over the last little bit. I said, and there's no offense taken.
So it's even if you're good, like even if you're a good player, sometimes they're just like, no, that's not for our team.
Yeah.
So it's not
at a certain pick.
Yeah. And it's like, so think of this. He's somebody, you've talked to this guy a lot. So you're his friend.
Yep.
Right. So a friend, colleague, whatever, you're in the media or in the industry kind of together.
Sure.
You interact a lot.
I can bounce anything off of this guy. Anything. And
that still doesn't make him say, well, maybe we'll take Charlie.
Yeah, because his dad's a good dude.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's his job.
That's not a factor.
It's his job and it's his team.
So it's just really interesting watching it on the outside, just like and I always understood it before, like when listening to you talk about like when you're having conversations with parents and they don't really listen and they're not really and now that I'm starting to kind of branch into that just from being around you a lot and meeting these people and hearing them talk and it's just ever more apparent what the frustration is, because it's like you don't know what you don't know, though, I guess. So that's probably part of it too.
What's funny, last thing is we had another team that Charlie interviewed with, and then they sent a note to Charlie and my wife and myself saying it was a very nice interview, good interview. If you have any questions, please get back to us. So I looked at it and go, okay, that's just being cordial. Most likely being cordial. But the other day, I got another one from the GM saying that he really enjoyed speaking with Charlie. And he goes, I'm so impressed with the young guy. And he gave us a little more details on the team and that we should look at this. And when you send your son away, you know, we take pride in taking good care of them and stuff. So he gave me like a lot to bite on. And please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email or touch base. So I was sitting there going, like, now I'm going, okay, I was actually in a conundrum, if that's a word.
Good word.
Because I'm like, okay, because first of all, from a professional standpoint, so the first email, I obviously responded, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Good luck to you, blah, blah, blah. On the second one, I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is, obviously I'm going to respond and say thank you very much. But then I'm like, I don't know if he wants me to reach out to him because he wants to talk more, because that was the context of it. Does he want me to have questions? Does he want to just maybe touch base again? So I threw something back and I said, thank you again. We're totally impressed with the interview process that you did. And this is certainly would be a place that we as a family would like to be. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me to dig deep about our family and if we are actually a fit. Yeah. But I didn't know if it was like, if he was just being cordial or not, but I just felt like a professional courtesy that I needed to respond. Because I think if I didn't, maybe it was like, well, maybe they're not that interested. Not that that would matter anyways. They could still draft him. Yeah. But so that was a weird thing.
Yeah. Well, you're just kind of, especially because they reach out twice, right? Two times. So you're, nice and you're just, but this is the other thing too, though. Like you have a good sense of where to draw the line, where you're just like saying, okay, they've reached out twice. I don't want to just ignore them.
Yeah.
Because now you're out of like hockey trainer, skills coach guy. Now you're in dad mode for this.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, here's an opportunity. What is the appropriate level of response to make sure they understand our interest, but I'm not trying to like get them to blow smoke up my ass and any of that.
Yeah.
And that's a good distinction to make on that, because it would be really easy to just jump all over that and be like, oh, let's talk every day, and I'm going to call you and ask you about what you think about the draft and all this. You know?
And I didn't misconstrue that he is their number one choice.
Oh yeah,
in the world,
for sure. Yeah,
and I didn't misconstrue that it means that they're their first pick. If they, it just means that they're very interested, and maybe they'll. I know that they will take him, but
yeah, that's right.
It's whatever. So, anyways, we went long on that. Is that okay?
Yeah,
it was all good. It's
fine.
Yeah, we'll maybe go shorter on this. It's all good.
It doesn't matter.
I wanted to share this thing. This was actually recommended by Dalton. Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a good recommendation.
We recommend books, and I'm glad he did. Because so the thing with books, and it's so funny. What I liked about this book is I told you this earlier. It's like, this is you and I in Dalton's brain on paper. It's awesome. It's cool. So in fact, he starts off this book roughly saying what we've been speaking about is we're at the point where grabbing books now is like, it's got to be good, valuable stuff. So like you say, you grab a book and you'll open up a random page, you start reading, and you'll see if there's okay, this is something. Mm-hmm. And he starts off, he says, people say to read, and he goes, I agree, but don't read everything. Yeah. Because there's only so many things that are worthwhile. But he goes, if you read something and it's good, don't just read it, absorb it and live it the best that you can. So that was interesting. So anyways, this is the book. There's no plan A or no plan B for your A game. It's by Bo Eason. So I'll do that again. There's no plan A. There's no plan B for your A game. And we spoke not too long ago about committing and being unrelenting in your pursuit of your plan A, right? And so this book I read after, and I absolutely love it. Mm-hmm. It's kids can read this, kids at a decent appropriate age, so like 13, 14, 15. That's a great book. Get the principles of this. It's awesome. So what is the book? What's it about? So the book is by Bo Eason. He was a former NFL safety, so he was drafted to the Miami Dolphins and finished off with the San Francisco 49ers. But the great thing about that is you think, okay, so he's a big, talented guy to play in the NFL. Obviously, he has to have some talent. But he grew up in a farm, I think it was in Illinois or Indiana. And his older brother was a star football player, and he was like the younger brother. And he was, when he decided that he wanted to play football at the high school, he got cut. Maybe it was before high school, and it doesn't matter. He got cut from the team. So he was kind of dejected and got into his dad's truck after, and he told his dad, he goes, I got cut. So dad said, like, what did the coach say to you? He said, I'm too small, because I guess he was just a little runt, right? So he goes, oh yeah? He goes, did he measure your heart? And he goes, oh, Dad, like innocent kid goes, Dad, I didn't know they had things to measure your heart. Like, what do you mean? So he said, no, what I mean is like they measure how bad you want it and how hard you're willing to work. He goes, I'm going to tell you a story, son. He goes, you know, on our farm, because you know our little dog that herds the cattle and stuff? Yeah. He goes, well, when the dogs have puppies, he goes, we let them run around for about 12 weeks. And you'll notice that we always keep the smallest dog, the runt of the litter. Because what you're going to find after about 12 weeks, after fighting for that piece of yarn or whatever toy they're playing or whatever, because that little dog has to work so much harder just to keep up. And he goes, so we give the other dogs away, but he goes, that dog, the little runt, without that dog, I couldn't run this farm. He goes, he's one step of the cattle every time, cattle, cows, whatever, bison, every time. And he works harder to survive. And he goes, without that dog, our farm doesn't survive. So, which was interesting. So he got, he uses that phrase of being the runt of the litter and the hard work parable or whatever. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, it's just it's the underdog story.
Yeah.
There it is. That's why it's cool.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, you know, as I go through this a little bit, it's always the same story. And it doesn't matter if it's hockey. It doesn't matter if it's business. It doesn't matter. It's the the guy that just puts in the effort and just is relentless at pursuing their goals and their dreams and whatever is the guy that you got to watch out for, right? So like I look at Charlie right now in his draft year and stuff, and we've had this conversation several times, but now as we're getting close to it, he's got uncertainty, not about his ability at all, but uncertainty because there's a lot of uncertain things happening. You hear scuttlebutt, this guy this, and then it's almost like, oh, are they forgetting about me? And they're not. But it creates a little bit of uncertainty, and it always goes back to like you can listen to the noise, and it can kind of get you down, or you just put your head down like the little runt of the litter, and you just do the work. And over time, things work out.
Well, it's like you said, it's common across it's not just hockey or sports or whatever, but business, the common thread. Like you see these people that are ultra successful, and I'd say it's more so in business too, because the guys that start something that's really great or have like some awesome business, whether it was like Microsoft or Apple or Elon Musk's story or whatever, like they all have this like struggle story behind it. And that doesn't mean that there aren't people who, the silver spooners that got everything handed to them off the bat. But outside of those guys, and that's what I always talk about, like those 1%ers, like in hockey, like unless you're one of those guys, the Connor McDavid or Crosby or whoever that was just the best always and from day one, and it was never hard for them. Not that it was never hard, but they always were just so much better that none of these things mattered. Then you're going to fall in this group where you need something that is going to be different about you. You need something that's going to make you stick. You're going to need something and that's when this story comes in. Like the common thing about all these guys that are outside of that 1% bubble are, man, that guy works hard.
Yep.
Like, man, that guy just went through the shit. Look, it's his first game and he's 26. Or like, man, you should see the way this guy works off the ice. Or man, this guy's an athletic specimen. Or man, this guy's willing to put his face in front of a shot. Like, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And that is outside of that 1% bubble. That's the story. Yeah. Every single, you go outside of the top 6 forwards, outside of the top 3 defensemen. That's what the story is. It's those are the guys that they scraped and scraped and scraped just to stay there. And it's awesome because Dalton it makes sense that he liked that book because that's him. That is exactly what it was for him. Yeah. He was and
only he wasn't the runt of the litter.
Yeah, he wasn't the runt of the litter. Well,
he was the big dog.
But he was the runt in the sense of he was the guy at the bottom of the food chain.
Yes.
And it wouldn't seem like that because he was a first round OHL pick.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's funny too because I think I don't know if maybe I'm wrong, but I think he called himself a late bloomer.
Well, the deal is that he could say that, but he wasn't.
Right.
But what it was is for the first 2, maybe 3 years in the OHL, he had zero guidance coaching.
Right.
It was basically go figure it out on your own, and that happens.
It delayed his development, so now it seems like you're a later bloomer.
Yeah.
But he was a first round pick to the OHL.
Yeah.
But after that, he was like one of those in the shuffle guys.
Yeah.
And then he had to scrape, man. He played 10 years pro, and he was scraping every year.
Well, he had his first year in junior. The one assistant coach who's actually not a friend of mine, but a friend.
Yeah, I do know.
Along those lines. He was an assistant coach, and he told him, he goes, I'm just here for beer money and chew money, some extra money. He played in the NHL too. Yeah. That's not the coach you want. I mean, that's the kind of what he had for about 2 years until he had a really good coach up in Barrie, defensive coach, and started teaching him stuff. And his game just went, took off. So, the late bloomer, I wouldn't say that. Learning the game at that level, yes, late. Yeah, right. He had to figure a lot of it on his own.
Yeah.
So, the next piece that he was talking about after learning about the big dog theory or the run to the litter theory is his dad, and I really like this piece because it's something I always do with my son, is his dad always told him that he's the best. Now, that's going to be something that people will, you just tell your kids the best all the time. No, it's not you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, and you stick up for him for everything. But what it was, it's the encouraging words that you're just the best. Like I've always told my son, you're the best kid. I say it every day. Listen, every day, twice a day, 10 times a day to my son. So you're the best kid. You're the best kid. You're the best kid. You're the best kid a dad could ever ask for. if he goes to do something, I say, yeah, you're the best. And I don't mean it like because you don't have to try or whatever. It's because you're the best kid and you're going to do it. Like it's just a love thing. And what it is also, it lets him think that he's not the worst or that he has something that he can't do. You can do it because you're the best, bud. You're the best. If you put your mind to it, you're the best. You can do it. And he said that from his dad went a long, long way, and it's something that he applies with his own kids. Says telling them that you can do it because you're the best. And again, just to qualify it, it's not you're the best just because. You're the best because you're a great kid that works hard. Like, you're just the best at it, and you're going to be the best. And I think if people understand that you could be the best, then that gives you the opportunity to turn on the I can do it attitude. Does that make sense?
Well, one little like clarifier thing too, that you're not, because we've also said like you before, so I don't want people to like be confused about what we're saying. We're not, because we said you don't want to blow smoke up somebody's ass all the time and tell them they're the best at everything always, no matter what. So like you need to understand the distinction between saying like you're the best kid, like as in having an encouraging word or giving them an encouraging word, as opposed to saying, no, like you're the best player, like you're going to get drafted top round. You're not. So that's the distinction. Like you're not saying it in the sense of you're the best hockey player ever and no one is better than you and whatever, blowing smoke up his ass. You're just, it's the encouraging side of it where you're giving him an encouraging word. And I got an interesting story about that because this has stuck with me since I was about 8. I remember I was playing T-ball. It was my first year of like travel baseball. So I was 8 and we were in Ancaster for like the Ontario Championship. We're 8, like little kids.
You love it.
And my dad was one of the coaches, so he was like an assistant. He was an assistant coach, and it was all just dads because we're 8. Yeah. So we go up to this tournament, and I remember it was like real intimidating. Like this, I remember this very distinctly. Like we're playing against like Toronto teams. Like this is the first time that was a thing. And it was like so intimidating, like thinking about, man, these guys are all like really and playing T-ball. Like, you know what I mean? T-ball. Yeah, we're all like 4 foot, right? Yeah. So, but we're just like, oh man, like the Toronto kids, like whatever. Yeah. And I remember one of the things my dad would say, because we actually weren't a very good team, but we weren't a good team in terms of like our skill level, but we were a really good team. Like together, we were a really good team. And it was kind of like you say when you coached the young guys in Essex one year when they weren't actually that good, but you made them a really good team and you guys ended up winning. Yeah. So it was like it's a similar story to that. So, and one of the things my dad used to say, because it was one of those dynamics where the first, like the top 3 guys on our team were really good, then the middle of the team, and then the bottom end was like not good. Yeah. And I remember one of the things my dad used to say to the other kids, everyone, but especially to the kids like more at the bottom end of the team, is he would say exactly what you were saying, just in a different way. He would say, who's better than you? And the answer that he drilled into our head was no one. And he used to say it, and we would have to answer him and say no one. And what he was trying to kind of get at is, like, all of us are on the same field. Everybody made this team. We're all on the same team. Everyone here is in the same tournament. Like, the playing field is even. Like, you guys are the best, even though that's not necessarily true, but it's the idea is correct, where it's like you guys all are here because you are the best ones. Yeah. So no one here is better than anybody else. And that was just a really nice thing, especially if you're one of those guys that's more on the bottom end or you're struggling to hear that, where it's like no one that you're going against is better than you unless you believe that they're better than you. Yeah. And if you can just believe in yourself that I'm supposed to be here, like I can stick here, I can make it here, and honestly come to grips with that and believe that, then that's something that's going to serve you when you are in that underdog position, especially something to keep you going. I still remember, man, this one kid in particular, I can still see my dad asking him, like in my head it is stuck, because he was like the worst kid on our team. He was the worst kid on our team. And he was like the last batter, or no, towards the end of number 9. Yeah, 8. Towards the end of the lineup hitting. Yeah. And he had this great hit. in one of the games.
It's a movie.
Yeah, and it was like a huge he had a great hit and it like scored a couple runs or whatever, and it was like this awesome moment. And I remember my dad after the hit, he came in, he was like, "Who's better than you?" And I can still see the kid answering him and saying no, and he's all lit up.
He actually believed it at
yeah,
that point.
Yeah, I believed it, man.
Yeah.
It was cool. So that's what that reminded me of that story.
Yeah, it's funny because it's actually important. So Charlie had a coach a couple years ago. He was a dad coach, and he used something along those lines. And he got it from, like, he was good at picking out stuff from motivational stuff and YouTubes and all that kind of stuff. And, hopefully the kids got the message, and I don't know if he presented it at the best or the worst or whatever, but the messages were pretty good. And one of the things he always used to use in his emails or at the end of his talks, he would say to them, he goes, and I love to watch you play. So hopefully it came out like with a passion when he said that, because I don't know, I was never in the dressing room or whatever. But I used to say that, like I say that to my son. I just love watching you play hockey, kid. I said, you're like, I just love it. And it just makes them feel better. So as a coach, if you can pull out things like that, it makes them want to play more. Like you're building a belief system a little bit as best as you can do without being crazy about it. But like when I coach my teams, that's what I used to say, man. I love watching you guys play, man. I wish I could sometimes just not be on the bench and just watch, because it's a beautiful thing. It's like you guys are the best group of kids to coach. You listen, you work hard, and it's all true. And well, it might not be true that they're the best, but to me they were. Mm-hmm. And as long as coach or dad or mom believe in that, and the kids trust you, they're going to act on that, on that value, right? So hard work, and you're the best, or hard work, and we just love you watching you because you're so awesome to watch. Yeah, that's a good belief system rather than pushing them down.
And it's crazy how much momentum you can get from just that.
Tons.
Like just that positivity and just like that reinforcement in your environment. Because I've been on the opposite side of that where I've got none of that.
Right.
And it's like, it is really hard to be resilient to that especially as a younger kid.
Yeah. When
just you're never getting that, like, hey, like you can do this, like you can whatever, like or just even that, just I love watching you play. Like things like that are just, they feel good to hear, and that's something that can really like reinforce what you're trying to do and what your goals are, and trying to pursue that when you have support around you. So that's a good advice especially for parents and with their kid. And again, like, be aware of the difference between just blowing smoke up their ass and being encouraging, right? Because those are not the same thing.
100%. So the next piece that he was talking about is, like, once he decided, when he got cut from this team, he said he fully committed to being a football player. He says, I'm going to make this team. He took his dad's advice, and he was like, I'm a runt of the litter, but you can't measure my heart, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make the team. And he worked hard. So what he said is he fully committed, like literally fully committed. And he said he didn't commit for, obviously a short term was to make the team and stuff, but he goes, I'm fully committing. I'm going to play in the NFL. That's what he said. And at that time, he had zero talent. He was just all about the grit. So he said every decision, something we've talked about before, was about becoming the best at what he's doing. So he wanted to be a football player more than anything else in the world. So when he made decisions like we talked about before, going to the prom, going to the movies and all these things, he saw that as a distraction to where he wanted to go. And like I've said before, and you've said before, when you have a vision that's so big and you mean it, you have to mean it, then the decisions you make in life become a lot easier, because now the distractions of going to whatever is getting in the way of you catching, in this case, catching a football, or you shooting a puck, or you working your legs so that you can be better in hockey. And it seems extreme to some point, but playing the NFL is extreme, and playing the NHL is extreme. So there's a big sacrifice. No, I wouldn't even call it a sacrifice. There's a big for whom much is asked for. No, I don't know. I forget how that one goes.
To whom much is given, much is expected. Is that what you were going
That's
for?
actually what it is.
Nice.
I thought I could phrase it a different way. But anyways, if you want something that big, like I said, if you want to go to heaven, you have to die. Yeah. So you have to put 100%. Everything into it. So that was something. And he said, like, everything, when he said fully committed, at an early age, he started to learn what football. So here's the thing, right? He had to learn what football players do. they train, they eat, they sleep. And he learned all these, watch videos and all that kind of stuff. So being fully committed, that's what he said. He said he just trained all the time. He was literally, him and his brother, who ended up playing in the NFL as well. It was a star. Got up at 5 and they did running drills, quick feet drills every day. They got up and they did it with pleasure because they knew that this is something that NFL players might have to do. And they ate, fairly clean. Even at a young age, they just started paying attention to their health because obviously being good football players, you have to be in good shape and all that kind of stuff. And, so in hockey, what does it mean for us? Like, obviously all that stuff, the early morning training, but you got to train things like your mind. But again, go to your weaknesses, find your weaknesses, try to pick some of those things out. So you might say, well, I'm not, but okay. I can see if you're saying, yeah, but my kid's he's not that good. He's just not that good. And I can see where you say, well, I'm not going to tell him to put all his eggs in one basket, like we've said before. But the thing is that you can be. And you might not have the necessary physical skills at first, but I'm going to tell you something. If you don't have a good shot in hockey, like as a kid, you can have a good shot. You can. It's going to take work. And if you don't have like the best mitts, you're not the slickest stick handler or whatever, that's a task that you put the time in. That it's one of the easier tasks to do is to get really good hands, right? You might not be that big, small, but then you have to work within your framework, right? And then you might say, well, he just doesn't understand the game, but that is something that you actually can do by training could be watching video and studying the game. If it's something this is something that you really want, you can actually do it. So when he said he was fully committed, he meant he was fully committed. Everything outside his, his obvious school, family time that you need to go to as a kid and all that kind of stuff, what he said was basically dedicated to becoming the best safety, free safety in football. Yeah. And it worked.
Oh yeah. And that makes sense. So a couple things on that. I was going to say you were mentioning, like actually believing you can do it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I remember as a kid was especially like in the context of hockey, I believed I could do it. So all these other things that I had to like give up, let's say, didn't feel like I was giving something up. So going to the extra skate, doing the extra workout, skipping whatever social thing, trying to eat properly the best I could, it didn't feel like actual work. And I think that's a good measure that some kids might be able to use. If in your head you have a lot of resistance in like doing some of these other things, maybe that's a good time to like kind of reevaluate what it is that you actually want.
So you're saying like resistance, meaning I really want to go to the prom.
Right.
Exactly. I don't. Yeah.
So it's like
for sure.
And for big events, whatever. Obviously, I'm not saying you can never do anything. That's not what I'm saying. But just in terms of like putting your rollerblades on and going outside and practicing on your own, or like unless someone this was how it was for me. Unless someone came to me to make plans to do something socially, I never initiated making plans.
Okay.
Like I never reached out to one of my friends to hang out. Barely ever. Reached out to a friend to hang out. Said I was going to make plans on the weekend or plan to do something because the thing that was at the front of my head all the time was I want to practice. I want to work out. I want to eat properly. I want to make sure I can get to sleep. I want to make sure to do these things. And that was what my priority was. So I didn't feel like I was skipping anything. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like I wasn't like, oh, I'm not going to message my friends so that I can make sure I'm practicing hockey. I just practiced hockey.
Yeah.
I didn't have to think about it. It didn't feel like a chore. I didn't have any resistance towards that, like at all. It's like, when somebody tells you have to read a book and you really don't want to, especially in high school, like somebody says you have to read this and it just, every second of it is just painful and you just feel it internally, like you don't want to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. If you're feeling some of that when you're doing this stuff, then maybe you're not in that position where you actually want it.
Yeah. Maybe. So you can sit there and say, okay, I'm going to really dedicate my life to that. But if it's a chore every single day, it's probably not your thing.
Exactly. And so this branches into the next point you're kind of talking about. What if a parent says, well, like I can tell my kid's not that good at it, so I'm not going to tell him to put all his eggs in one basket. And that would be the determining factor as a parent of whether I think that or not. If I can see that they're doing the things every day or they really actually want it, then where they're at today is less of an issue because they're doing the things that or what it looks like they should be doing to get to where they want to go or where they say they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a kid who, because we were talking about the GSP book a while back,
mm-hmm.
and everyone said like there was nothing spectacular about him, nothing. He's one of the best fighters ever. So if you're a parent and you're in the position where maybe you think that about your kid, I don't want him to put all his eggs in one basket because I don't think he's actually that good, or maybe he doesn't seem to have that much potential in the sport, but your kid actually wants it. And by actually wanting it, I mean what I just said, like they're doing the things every day. They don't feel resistance to it, and they're just doing it on their own where they really want it. Then it is, I think, in my opinion at least, it is worth having them really dial in on that thing, because maybe even if they don't end up going and playing pro, maybe they or making a career out of it, maybe they do get something really valuable out of the sport, like somebody like me, for example, where I went to school, got a great degree, and all of that, and who I am as a person today is exactly a result of what I went through in being a hockey player. That is 100% where that came from. So I think that's a good metric to use as a parent, because you said if my kid, maybe they don't have it. Well, what is your kid doing though?
Okay, so can I interrupt you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first thing you said was, it was kind of in my next notes. I'm just going to confirm that. Okay. So what was the first part? It was
like feeling resistance towards practicing and stuff.
Said something before that.
Actually believing that you can do it.
Okay. Anyways, the resistance. Yeah, if it's not, you're going to find out real fast if this is what we're talking. This is what you want, not something that you wish. Yeah. Like there's a difference between a dream, just out there, and something that you actually desire. And no one can tell you can't. But so the last part you asked about that, or you said about that, was when a parent looks at it, or when a parent looks at it, or other people look at it and say, well, I don't know if he's good enough. It's not your decision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I guess I was going to conclude the whole thing on this, but I'll do it. Yeah. I'll do this point now. What's the worst thing that could happen? Yeah. But not only that. Okay, let's just say you have a dream, but you don't want to commit that long, and you just think it's too much. So then don't commit. Now what? Right? I would rather see my son go nuts, give me everything he's got, and live a good life, like be a good human, but pursue this thing till there's nothing left to just squeeze the lemon till there's no more juice, and you either do or you don't. Because if you don't, now what? So you don't pursue a dream. You don't work absolutely balls out. You don't learn the principles of absolute hard work, and you don't realize that you get through 3 shit sandwiches just to get one little thing, and you make sacrifices. That was the other thing, is sacrifice. They're not sacrifices. Like when you're actually doing the thing that you love, and your actual goal and your dream or your declaration that this is what you're going to do. This is just part of the process. It's not pain. For me, my only my only toy was my hockey stick. It's the only thing, hockey stick. I didn't care about one other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, football, sports and stuff, but like hockey is what I cared about.
Yeah, you give up all those other
Not
things.
one piece of torture. It was everything to me. To skate, to shoot, to think, watch. Everything was about hockey.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the question. So if you don't do it, okay, that's. I don't want you to put all your eggs in one basket. I don't want you to, as a parent, I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you all these things. You're not good enough. It's like no. What if they prove you're wrong? But the thing is that don't do it then. Don't do it, and then just be average. You'll take your first job in life, and you won't, because you won't. Maybe it won't be. You'll say this thing about school. Same thing about school. Well, don't think that high. Like, put it all on the line. I would say 100%.
Yeah. Well, the only consideration I'd say for parents, and you could probably speak more on this than me, is there is a cost to doing something like this. So when you're a kid, to pursue whatever your sport is, or to go every weekend out of town and to pay for hotels and gas and equipment and all that. So it is partly a parent decision. I think there's a point.
Partially, yeah. There's a point.
There's a point where, if your kid is my favorite thing, pretending, where they are saying that they're doing it, but their actions don't say that they want to do it. then I think as a parent, I don't think it's uncalled for to step in and say, okay, well, you're not really doing this, so like I'm gonna kind of ease off the gas and how much I'm giving you towards this thing because you're not really doing. Yeah. And that doesn't even really need to be a conversation. Like you can just see how they're behaving, and then they'll slowly start to not pick to keep doing those things anymore. Sure. So it's less of an issue. But I think you're right. If your kid says he wants to do something or she wants to do something, and like they're going to be no worse off trying to pursue that thing to the best of their ability. And it's not like you said. I don't think as a parent, I don't think it's up to you to say, no, you shouldn't do that. You should do this. If they're behaving in a way that says they actually want to do that thing that they're talking about. So if it's a hockey thing and your kid is saying, I just want to play hockey, but he can't make the AAA team because he's just not there yet. I don't think that's a reason to say, well, kid, maybe you're not there yet. What
you could say is like, what can we do to help? Like, what do you think's missing in your game? There's ways that you can actually help the kid.
Totally. Well, think of how many stories there are of kids that played AA till they're 15 and then moved up to AAA for, or I mean, Charlie was like that. Charlie played AA until he was 13,
12.
This was
12.
This would have been his third year of AAA, right? Yeah. So like he wasn't playing AAA since day one.
When he went to AAA, it wasn't the best.
And he wasn't the best. And so he's been improving this whole time. And he's been the one driving the bus on the hockey thing because he's been constantly asking you, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? Yeah. Can we go skate today? Can I come to the gym with you today? And that's what you can use as a parent is if your kid is behaving that way.
Well, think about your kid. Your kid wants to be a hockey player, okay? 10, 12 years old. So it's not like there's a good quote that my friend said to me. He goes, in a household, I started it wrong. I started with the end. Because there's motivated parents and there's motivated players. Because usually they don't live in the same house. So the point of that is if your son is motivated to become a professional hockey player and you're not the one motivated, that's a whole different ballgame. Because if you're motivated and your kid's only kinda, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But if the kid's motivated, he's going to do things. So all of a sudden, do you not want him to actually look at the food that he's eating and say, I don't know, this is not really that healthy. Mm-hmm. Do you not like the leverage of as a parent saying, I don't like your effort in school right now. The only thing I could think of is you got 2 hockey practices and 2 games this week. Like, if you don't pick it up right now, guess we're not playing. And have them cry and say, you can't take away hockey. That's what happens in our house. Mm-hmm. You can't. It's the only thing I can. Well, then pick up your socks. What leverage are you going to use as a parent? What on Friday night in grade 9, 10, 11 when shit starts to happen and your son's in the house and he's working on a shot or watching a hockey game and talking to his hockey friends, is that you don't like that, or would you rather him out at the
bush party
at the bush party with sketchy people that you don't really I'm not really sure, or you are sure what they're all about? I think you let them pursue the dream, because I can tell you as a dad, the cost of hockey. That it costs like the equipment, the ice, the travel, all that kind of stuff. Like, people think we're nuts sometimes, but I like the cost. I like the price I'm paying because I actually have a clue of what my kid's doing. Yeah, Yeah. And the kids that he's hanging out with, I know their parents. And sometimes we drop Charlie off to his buddy's house and we have a couple drinks or we shoot the shit with the parents a little bit. And by the time we're leaving, the kids have to go to bed. I know what they're doing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing you always say is you have something to parent around, which is a cool,
like 100% you do,
which is such an awesome benefit of having that. But what you said before too is, I wanted to clarify too, because you said if the kids want to play professional hockey and you're not motivated, which that is such a common thing too, where the parents aren't motivated. But the kid is motivated, but the parent just can't feed them because they're not motivated. Yeah. So, but it's not even necessarily about wanting to be a professional. It's just about wanting to pursue something. So you can even broaden it out even more. So even if your kid says, well, I want to be a professional hockey player, and you think, well, like, I don't think you're going to be good enough to be a professional. It's not even about that necessarily. It's just about like letting them try to.
Absolutely.
Like, let them go after it and try to do it. And because in every way you just mentioned, they're just better off.
They're just better off.
They'll just be better
at
off.
the end of the day, you're going to find out that the kid's going to know at some point whether he just has this. I'm not taking the talent or whatever. If he has if he can stomach what's going to take to get there. That's the best way I could say it, because I'm being honest. There's nobody that can say you can't make it. That's up to you. I'm telling you, it's up to you.
Well, and they'll take. It was like for me and similar. Well, I don't know if it was exactly similar for you, but at least for me, I took it as far as I could take it. Like you said, squeeze the lemon until there's no more juice left. Mm-hmm. And then I came to a point in my life where I had to decide, okay, do I want to keep going with this and like go play in some like crummy pro league and scrap it out for 4 or 5 years for like shit money just to keep playing? Or is it a better idea now to pursue something else? And now that I'm an adult and I can make that decision for myself, what I decided was to start to do something else and to move on, because I could see like my future. I got what I could get out of the sport. Like, I maximized what I could get for me personally out of the sport, and it was time to move on. Yeah. And I was okay with that internally inside for myself. I was good with that decision. And that's what I did. But to like prematurely cut your kid off from getting to that point, to extract like all the goodness that you can get out of it while being in it, and just to be there like facilitating them along the way. I don't think that's right for the parents to do, unless your kid's behavior obviously isn't lining up with that as a goal. Yeah.
So this guy, he was done he obviously played years in the National Football League, and then he got knee blown out, pretty common in football. So he took this plan that he did with football, and so what he says, he made a declaration. He goes, I will be in the NFL. And he gives himself a little bit of reasons. So when that was done, he said, I want to kind of tell my story about how I became a professional football player. So and he uses the words runt of the litter and all these kinds of things all the time in his speeches, but it's not a speech, it's a play. So he came down. It's a weird thing, but it's really awesome. He came down and said, I'm going to tell my story through a play. Now that's a weird thing, actually, to be a football player.
Weird transition
to a artist.
Yeah,
right?
Actor.
Yeah, play artist. Yeah. So he wrote his script down, and he goes, I've never written anything in my life, but I wrote it down. I wrote down what I wanted to talk about. So he has this play where he starts off with him being a kid on stage, and has a play where he's a little kid, and I think from what I saw of it, he does all the speaking. It's just him. I could be wrong. It's only I saw glimpses of it, and he speaks to him. He speaks as if someone's speaking to him, and he reacts and stuff, and he's in his football outfit, and it's pretty cool. So
sorry. So does he do like is it like a full acting play, or is he like doing a monologue where it's just him on stage talking?
A play. Him.
Like there's other actors.
I'm not sure if there is. I don't think there is. There might
so
be.
So it'd be more like where he's just on stage talking.
Yeah. No, you know what? There are a couple others.
Are there?
Yeah. I don't know. No, I only saw clips, and I just wanted to see what it was about, to see. Yeah. So I just see him speaking to himself like in a third person almost. Yeah. Anyways, it was interesting. Neither here nor there.
Yeah.
No, sorry, it is here or there. No. It's good. So anyways, writing a play. So he goes, well, first of all, I've never written anything in my life. Second of all, I don't know how to act. So there's strike one, strike two, you're done. There should be. Really? Okay, where do you start? So he says, but in his declaration, he says, I'm going to be the best play actor in the world. Well, who is the best play actor in the world? And he came up with Al Pacino. Sought out Al Pacino. And this is interesting. He sought out Al Pacino. Al Pacino said, sure, I'll sit down with you. So he was like, why would you even sit down with me? He goes, because he is the best play actor in the world, apparently. I don't know. Mm-hmm. He goes, why would you even sit down with me? He goes, because no one ever asks. No one ever would say, can you teach me what you know? Because people want to know about my life. They want to be hanging around. They want to tell me how great I am. But no one says, can you teach me what you know and what I need to get good at? He goes, I'll sit down with you as long as you want. So this guy sat down with Al Pacino and showed, and Al Pacino would say this, no, you got to be the person, whatever the stuff is. And that came out of left.
Give everyone your acting advice. Give the principles of acting.
Here I go. But the point is that he asked.
Be the actor.
You got to be the person.
The character.
Yeah. If I'm going to be. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Anyways, Al Pacino goes to his plays and stuff now and thinks, he's great. And he did it. Yeah. But see, that was an excellent point too, is that people don't seek out the right advice. He had no business being a play actor and maybe one of the best in the world. And in his mind, he is. Maybe he's not. But this thing that he's doing is incredible. And people go, and it's like a different twist on a motivational speech. If that's one way to say it. Like he's telling this, through a play.
Yeah, it's creative.
I just will not give up. This is my goal. And he uses the words that were in his book to do this, which is great. So, so he says in doing these, when you're looking at plan A, he goes, you have to do a 20-year plan. So, I'm 16. Well, okay, you could be 52. It's still 20 years. It doesn't matter. You're going to be better off for it anyways. But he says it's a 20-year plan. He goes, it's going to take you a few years to kind of get your feet wet. Like, the rules of Anders Ericsson, and he's the guy that the 10,000 hour rule, that's, it's not 100% accurate, but it's a guideline. It's about 10 years. 10 years to become a professional, and then 10 years to I don't know be the best professional. I don't know, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he says a 20-year plan. He goes, and you pursue something for 20 goddamn years. Yeah. Go. Because the problem is most people give up after we want it quick, right? Shortcuts. We want things quick. We want things without the effort, without the shit sandwiches, without actually getting good at it, right? So I thought that was very interesting. And he said, he says, so when you're before, like an action step basically is before you actually pursue it, like before you actually do the pursuing, write down your action plan and say, this is where I want to be and this is where I am right now, fill in the blanks. Yeah. And he goes, over 20 years, you can do it.
Yeah, and that's such a common advice too from successful people too. Like, make a plan, write it down, like find where do you want to go, reverse engineer it, how can you get there, what are the steps you can make. We've talked about this so many times, like you and make a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan, and then step back and, okay, what can I do? Break it all the way down to what can I do today to get there? What can I do tomorrow? What can I do this week, next week, the week after, the year after, whatever. And you can map it out. And it takes, like I did, Jordan Peterson has one of those, it's called self-authoring program, which I did. And
you did it?
I did it, yeah.
Oh, cool. And did you actually buy the book or the program? Or
I bought the program, yeah.
I'd like to see it.
So
I was thinking of doing it. My wife was thinking of doing it, and I think I'd like to do it.
It's you have to do it honestly. Like, it's one of those things where
why lie to yourself?
Because it takes, but it's not even doing it honestly. You have to do it completely. Like, you have to fully let the process happen for as long as it takes, and it takes a long time. So it's deep. There's he has a past authoring program and a future authoring program, and so the past one is where you're kind of going over your life, and that's going to
be torture for me.
Oh man, and it takes a long time, man. Like, you to sit and honestly do it and honestly recount what you've done and what has happened to you and try to make sense of what the deal is. It is actually very, very long. It takes a long time to work that out because you don't know what you think about it until you write it down. Yeah. Because you just have a jumbled mess in your head of what has gone on.
When you have your own perception.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you.
But then it's like when you start to say it and you start to write it and you're like, oh no, that's not actually what. So you're just kind of like having brain vomit about what happened until you can form it into like a coherent kind of story of what happened to you.
So that's got to be one of the best things you've ever done, or not really?
Very helpful, definitely.
That's
yeah,
in that
very
context.
helpful. And there's like some of the things I wrote down from my past that I've struggled with. I still struggle with. It's not like
but you're
fixed
aware.
all my problems, but it just articulated to me like I know what happened, and now I can try to work through it. And it's just like facing it. It's just facing what happened. But anyways, the futuring one, which is more relevant to what we're talking about, it's the same thing where it's very, very demanding, and they have you go through, if you could have your life exactly how you would want it in X amount of time, what would it look like? But then they make you do the opposite, and they say if your life was the worst it could be, what would that look like? So, people will go as far as, I would be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and on the bad side, I would be a drug addict living on the street, like whatever. And then they make you write out the steps to get to both.
Yep.
So that you can see
what step you make every day that's taking you one way or the other.
So that's awesome. So it's completely mapped out in the positive direction and the negative direction, so that you can see if you're heading down the negative direction, what are the steps that you're taking, right? And so obviously one of the things that ends up coming up, if you're going to end up being a drug addict on the street, one of your first steps is going to be going out every weekend to all these parties or whatever. Yeah. Every weekend. Yeah. Like that's an obvious first step.
Not saying that you are there, but it's one step towards that.
You need to take a first
step. It's not
step.
Neutral.
Right. It's not neutral. Right. And you're not just standing still, because you're either going forwards or you're going backwards. You're never just standing still. Regardless of what decision you make, it's either getting you further along where you want to go or pulling you away from where you want to go. There's no, this decision means nothing. No. There isn't any of that. So if you're sitting around,
and a habit is just you're sitting around with literally doing nothing, you're probably not going to be the CFO of a company.
Oh yeah, and that's the whole point of doing the exercise is you see what the steps are, and it goes big steps to little steps. And so like the guy was saying, to make your 20-year plan or whatever it is, and you're going to be no worse off having tried to do that.
That's right.
And even if you don't end up in the 20 years or whatever the time frame is, if you don't end up where you wrote down on the paper, you're going to be a hell of a lot better off than if you let yourself just randomly bounce around, and you'll probably be a lot closer to the negative end of that story than the positive if you don't actually have a plan or something that you're actually going to write down.
Yeah, I can attest to it. Now, it's just is it the self-authoring and past authoring, is that a book or computer?
Computer.
Okay.
Type. So it has
no, but is a program? Did you get it?
Yeah, so you buy it. It was like $15 or whatever.
Still on the computer? Like it's not a hard book.
No,
that's what I'm saying. That.
No.
Okay.
You log in to they give you you sign up, and it makes you an account.
Yes.
And then you click on past authoring or future authoring, and then it just gives you. It's almost like you ever take like an online survey or like an online test or whatever, and you fill the one out next, fill the one, hit next. It's like one of those.
Okay.
So you're not
cool. Writing it physically down.
No, which I don't like. I don't like as much either. I would rather write it down. But I mean, I guess you could just write the questions down and then just write them. So
genius, aren't you?
But it saves it on your account, and then you can like print it out after, and it has it all for you.
Cool. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah,
I've been actually for a couple of years saying I'm gonna get it, and then I get sidetracked, or maybe I just do other stuff. I don't know. Whatever. Well, I want to do it. I'm gonna actually order it maybe today or tomorrow.
Well, that's why it's nice having people in the environment doing shit, because they remind you of things you wanted to do, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I know. It's important, dude. It's important. Yeah. Like, if you take life seriously, it's kind of important. I take it seriously. Not really.
No, sometimes.
Yeah. Did I tell you about his knee injury?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Where you are, where you're going to go. Okay, so there's going to just be a couple more things, and then we're going to shut her down, because it's a thick book, and it's just a couple things that I liked, and it was so relatable to me that I get this stuff. He said, if you go into a National Hockey League dressing room, there's going to be something that says on the door, says Calgary Flames personnel only, no entry allowed, if you're not that, right? Or for players only. Right? And that might seem like, it's their dressing room, but it's more than that. There's a big difference between a player and a fan. And I've always said to my son, and I've always been this way, is I'm never going to be a fan. So how am I saying this? Okay, so Charlie's grown up, obviously very fortunate because he's been around since a kid. Like Aaron Ekblad, Steve Ott, and you go down a whole bunch of names. He's been around professionals. There's not a real intimidating factor. But on the side of that is I've never let him go get someone's jersey. And I don't let him get autographs. I told him that from the beginning. I said, if you want to be a hockey player, you don't want autographs. I don't want you pursuing a dream where if you ever go on the ice with someone, you're sitting there going, wow, they play in the NHL. It's something I can't. You know, they're not better than you. If you're going to look to share the ice with someone one day that you got your autograph, that's weird. You have to look at them, even though they might be 20 years older than you play in the national hockey, you have to look at them like they're your peers so that you're never intimidated. See, the game, if you're a true player, you'll never look at someone like they're special, because what you have to understand is that special person that you see, if you rewind their life for the last 15, 20 years, they're going to be doing the exact same thing that you're doing.
They were you.
100%.
Yep.
They had a passion, and they had to work, and they did what they had to do to get to where they have to get. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what when we said, and I think we said in our last podcast, is that what people consider the game, fans or spectators or people that are interested, they look at hockey as, or sports or whatever it is, business. It doesn't matter, but we're hockey. They look at it like TSN highlights, Sports Center highlights, sports, the trade deadline, the draft. They look at the dog and pony show that goes on and all the fancy productions and all that stuff, and they think that that's hockey, and that's not hockey. Mm-hmm. When you go to a game, like, it drives me nuts. That's why one of the reasons I don't go to pro games is the Jumbotron and all the shit that happens. I just want to watch hockey. But the game is this entertainment thing that people get sucked into and wear jerseys. And it's like they have no idea that when you're walking off the ice and the guy wants to throw a hot dog. So this is an interesting perspective. It was in this book. A guy's willing to stand there with a jersey on, whatever team, doesn't matter, drinking a beer and eating a hot dog, and is willing to throw a beer at you or a hot dog, thinking that you didn't do well today, or they hate you because the media or whatever. But it's so funny. He goes, you went and bought a hot dog and have a beer are the things that I can't have, so that I can perform here. I can't have that kind of stuff. And you're yelling at me and telling me that I'm no good or whatever. Yeah. He goes, the fan perspective and the player perspective are 1,000 different things. It's like actually not necessarily fun to be the player. It's their job, it's their passion, it's their dream. Like, it's fun in a different way, but the perspective of the game is like totally different, and you actually can't let the fan seep into your productive part of pursuing the dream.
Yeah. Well, the part of that whole spiel you went on that I like is you were saying, look, you're looking at these, and hey guys, you want to go get an autograph? I don't care. But the point of what you're saying is you're treating these people like they're like elite and special, yep. and it's you're elevating them beyond yourself. Yeah. Instead of just treating them like a person kind of thing. Yeah. So what I like about that is, like, how about just you be the special person? Yeah. And then you're the same as them. Exactly. And that's what's interesting now is because even if, like, people would look at me in how my life is, and there's nothing about me that's in this like elite bubble. Like, I'm not a fantastic athlete. I'm not super rich. I'm not whatever famous person you want to put in but my perspective on these types of people is I would never be starstruck by meeting another human. No. It would just be nice to meet you. Like, yeah. Cool. What do you want to? What do we have to talk about? Like, let's talk about something. It'd be cool to ask you some questions.
But there's also an understanding. You know what I mean? Like, you've known enough of the guys that work out here. If you met Elon Musk, okay, because you're an engineer and stuff, there's an understanding. Yeah. You're doing everything he did. Mm-hmm. It's not.
Yeah, it's the same.
Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes this, that, the other thing. It's hard work, though. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
So, all the guys that work out with us and train with us. Can you imagine if I asked Aaron if I can get one of his sticks?
Well, and this is what I mean. Like, now, and this is where you start to, now you're drifting into the realm of, like, you're behaving like a fan. Yeah. And don't like, there's nothing more strange to me than like a grown man going to ask like a 21-year-old for their autograph.
It throws me off.
It's weird. It's weird. It's like you could be this guy's dad.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand why you're doing that. But to me, what is cool is to meet people like that, because then you get to talk to them. Like, how did you do what you did? Like those types of things. You can. That's why it's cool. It's not cool for the I met Austin Matthews and he signed this piece of paper for me. It's like you almost wasted some opportunity there.
Absolutely.
You know? And so that's the difference that you can make. Like, put you how about you be the special person?
Yeah.
Treat yourself like you're the special person, even if you don't think you are.
Yeah.
Just treat yourself like you're the same as them.
Yeah.
Because it's just another person. And you have to start from somewhere to get somewhere like that, you know?
Yeah. It's funny too, is you notice we have pictures on the walls in our office. I've never asked one guy for one of them. Yeah. Not a chance. Yeah. But they thought it was nice that they sign a picture, and thanks for all the help and all that stuff. And it's a nice gesture and stuff. But
well, it's good for business.
It's 100%. But I've never asked for that. Yeah. And it was funny last year. Zach a couple years ago, when he was in Vancouver, sent Charlie a whole bunch of Vancouver stuff. But he was a little kid though. But we're like, I felt so weird about it. But it was nice for Charlie as a kid, but he never asked for it either. Yeah. And then last year, like literally a year ago, 1 year ago, Zach was just trying to be thankful for what I was doing with him last year. So, and I wouldn't let him do a whole lot. So he went and got, he ordered the third jersey from Edmonton and signed it to, I don't know if it was to me or to Charlie. And I'm like, but it was. We got it actually folded in our bookshelf. It's not even out. Mm-hmm. But it was a gesture we didn't ask, and he just sent it to us, and it was like kind of cool. But what are you gonna do with a goddamn jersey?
Yeah, and the gesture's nice.
Yeah, the gesture's nice.
But the point of it, like, you're not going seeking out. I'm not collecting jerseys to get as many autographs as possible. You know what was
cool is Zach actually thinks Charlie's awesome at hockey, and he tells him, like, you're strong. You're freaking sick. You're going to go play. Like, so that's kind of cool. Zach puts him on the same level. So does Dalton, really. The guys, they put him on the same level. Like, no, you're one of us. And Zach gave him, I think it was 15 sticks. He says, what pattern? He goes, oh, you got the same pattern? He goes, I'm here, man. Use my sticks. So he gave him 15 sticks this year. Yeah, that was kind of cool. But it wasn't like autograph sticks. It was like, yeah, use these, break them, and let me know when you need more.
Yeah, you're not. There's a difference between that and like you're acting like a fan, right? And that's the thing. Don't be a fan. Act like you're the one in the ring. You know, that's 100%. And even if you're not, act like you are.
Yeah.
Just because.
Can you imagine if you got on the ice and you were like a Dylan Larkin fan for Detroit? And you just think he's the best, and you just want his jersey, and you want his autograph, and all that stuff. And then you actually go in one day and you're playing against the Detroit Red Wings, and you're like looking at him like, oh my God. Like that's what happens.
Yeah, it does happen. Yeah.
You know, you couldn't compete with that guy because you don't think you can. You're not on the same level. Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about, because time is time, is
what? Time is time.
Well, time is time. Time's valuable, man. Is process versus results. Like, this was not really in the book. There was a little piece on it, but process versus results. I really like this. Maybe people don't think about it enough, or maybe they do. But Charlie, in one of his interviews, this is what they asked him. They said, Charlie, we want you to not describe, what's the word? Give us the meaning. Give us the meaning of process and result, and then use an example and tell us what's more important. So it was on the spot there, but he was going through it. Like, process is obviously you're going through the thing. Result is whether you win or lose or whatever. So he went through that, and he said he thought about it. He goes, I think they're both actually important, but I think the process is more important because it's kind of like everything. So anyways, they really liked his answer, and they said, of all the interviews we've done over years, you're the only one that said that, because people think that winning is the most important thing, getting the result, and but without the process, you don't get it. And I guess the point of that is, when you're going through the process, like when you look back, like you try to enjoy the process, because the process is everything. You are going to be who you become through the process, not the result. If you could win a game, but if you won it because you just had a better bunch of guys around you, or you cheated. Like the result, the win is the win. Everybody wants to win, but it's how you get the result. And to me, the win comes totally in the process. You might never make, let's say you're doing your 20-year plan and your goal is to play in the National Hockey League, and you're 30 years old and you never made it, but you gave everything you had. The process of getting there will stick with you for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you could be just a talented guy, make it at 18 years old, become a drunk, and end it at 25, have $25 million in the bank, and then blow it again. You didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
The process didn't help you.
Yeah,
you know
and I'm an example of that for sure. Process, man. All about process. My end goal was I wanted to be a professional hockey player. Didn't get there, but because the focus was the process, I could make the lateral move into anything that I wanted to do. And now I'm not just talking about my junior days every Friday night after 8 beers with my former teammates, just living in the past about what happened, and that's a crummy place to be in. So if you can, instead of just worrying about, I got to get here, it's like, no, just because, there's some things that you just can't control. There's a lot of things you can't control. And even if you do everything right, or you think you did everything right, sometimes you just don't get it. And that's just what happens. But if the process is the focus, then it's another, like we said before, you're just better off. You'll just be better off after. So it's an important thing to keep in mind. I like that. It's nice.
Yeah. So again, it kind of ended on that. And we're talking about the process, kids. Even parents, you can help with that. Is the process isn't, again, as a fan, when you look at the 30 for 30 movies on ESPN, or you look at the Blind Side movie, it's like the process. They show like little glimpses of it, and then they end up with a beautiful story at the end. Most of the time, the process is the bulk of the story, and the result is a little piece of it. And to do this awesome task of being of hitting your goal as a hockey player, it's a long process. It's a lot of there's more downs than there is ups, and you actually have to enjoy it. You have to be able to pick yourself out of when you don't want to. You still have to go to the gym and work out. When you're at the family gathering and it's not the appropriate day, and people are eating blueberry pie and brownies and burgers and all these different things, the process is still the process, and you still have to have some sort of discipline to go through that. And having said that, people are going to sit there and they're going to say, "Oh, come on, loosen up." Right? Loosen up.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of the things you have to eliminate is those type of people. Not that you can't do it all the time, but you have to understand the process is that, no, my process is actually, I have to do this for my end goal. So sitting here with you that don't have the goal, eating 6 burgers or drinking 10 beers or having a thing of brownies or whatever, it's like, I can't do that. And I know you'll never understand it. But the process is the process. I have to stick to the process to get to the goal. And there's more days like that than there's where you're with a whole bunch of people that are on the same page with you. But that's why it's important to find the right people, right? To be around, that they encourage you and keep you on the straight and narrow, to help you, to be a teammate with you on the way.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's good, man. I like that piece to end there.
Me too.
I know you said you want to end on that. Is there anything else?
No, we're gonna end on that.
That's it. Sweet, man. All right,
good.
next one.
Awesome.